It's Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020. I'm Greg Nibbler, and this is Digital Trends Live. And hello, everyone. Yes, indeed, it is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and more. And let's get started off with some news. Tesla's Battery Day event did not disappoint as they unveiled a new battery for their development of cheaper electric vehicles and a super fast modified Model S. First off, for the battery side of things, Elon Musk said that they have developed a new energy storage technology for electric vehicles, which could cut production costs in half while storing 50% more energy than current batteries. The batteries themselves would be physically larger, but would be built into the structure of future Teslas to accommodate that. They would also increase the range of electric vehicles by 54%. What this really boils down to, though, is cheaper cars. Musk said that development of the batteries has already begun at a pilot production plant, and he believes that within 3 years, Tesla will have a car that can sell for $25,000 and compete directly with gas-powered vehicles. Another announcement was for a modified Model S that you can purchase now, albeit for a lot more money. The Model S Plaid version was shown on a speedway going from 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. It has a top speed of 200 miles per hour, 1,000 horsepower, and a range of 520 miles, and the price matches the stats at $140,000. It's available for pre-sale now and would be shipped by the end of 2021. There's some updates to Autopilot as well and a few other things announced, and you can read all about them at digitaltrends.com. Samsung had an Unpacked event today where they showcased a revised S20 phone that actually doesn't cost $1,000. It's called the Galaxy S20 Fan Edition, or FE, and it's really meant to be a bridge between the higher-end S20 and Note 20 phones and the lower-level A line of phones at a price of $699. So what's the difference? Well, for the hardware, it actually has a screen that's a little larger than the S20 with a 6.5-inch instead of a 6.2-inch, and it maintains the 120 hertz refresh rate, but it also has a lower resolution. On the camera side of things, it's got 3 different lenses on the back, including an ultra-wide and a telephoto camera, plus a 32-megapixel selfie camera on the front. It's also got a larger battery and a fast charging option that will supposedly charge to 50% capacity in 30 minutes. Also, it's 5G, which means it's a less expensive way to start rolling that out. It also comes in 6 different colors, and this is all coming ahead of a Google event next week for the new Pixel phone and probably an Apple iPhone event not too far into the future. You can read more about it at digitaltrends.com. Walmart has begun a trial program in Las Vegas that will deliver COVID-19 tests via drone. Qualified customers who live within a 1-mile radius of 2 different Walmart supercenters can request the tests for free. The drones will drop them off somewhere outside of their house, depending on where obstacles are, so either the driveway, backyard, etc. The customers would then take the swab tests themselves and return the sample via a prepaid package to Quest Diagnostics, which is partnering with Walmart and would get results in about 2 days. The trial expands upon Walmart's overall drone delivery testing, which got underway a couple of weeks ago when they received FAA approval to start test delivering groceries at another location in North Carolina. There are drone delivery trials being tested from Google's Wing division, Amazon Prime Air, and UPS, which is running medical drone deliveries at a hospital. Walmart is the first company known to deliver COVID-19 tests via drone for this trial, which would, of course, vastly decrease the need for human-to-human contact. You can read more about it at digitaltrends.com. The problem of space junk was on full display yesterday as the International Space Station was forced to take evasive measures to avoid a collision. NASA and Russian engineers were able to change the orbit of the ISS in time by raising it to get out of the path of the debris, which was estimated to come within 1.39 kilometers of the structure, and that's really close for space. The crew members on board the ISS were even told to move toward the Russian Soyuz section in case they had to make an emergency escape. Luckily, that didn't happen, and they successfully avoided any collision. The problem, really, is that there's a lot of junk orbiting the planet, and even a tiny object the size of a paint chip could cause severe damage because it's all traveling at speeds of around 17,500 miles per hour, let alone that there are estimated to be about 500,000 marble-sized pieces of junk as well, most of which is really hard to track. I mean, we've all seen the movie Gravity, correct? Well, most of the junk comes from collisions of old satellites or rocket pieces, but some of it comes from international military displays of blowing up satellites, which is just dumb. So there are a lot of plans being made to try to clean it up, from giant nets to space vacuums or magnets, but it definitely needs to be addressed as more and more commercial space endeavors take place. You can read more about it at digitaltrends.com. All right, continuing on here with Digital Trends Live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. There's a new film that debuted on Netflix on September 17th called Residue, and it tackles the story of a young filmmaker returning to his old neighborhood and finding it gentrified beyond recognition. Joining us now is the writer, director, and producer of Residue. We have Merawi Gerima. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Appreciate seeing you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I wanted to start off by saying, hey, congratulations on this movie. I know it's your first feature film, and it seems like you're credited with pretty much everything short of starring in it. And I wanted to ask, what were some of the biggest challenges you had in getting your first feature film out?
I mean, obviously, we didn't have much money, and I think the economic challenge of bringing a film of this kind of magnitude, to life was a big one. But I think what we lacked in resources, we made up for in community, engagement and community power. It really was community filmmaking that made this possible. And outside of that, everything that went wrong could go wrong, which is fine. I think that we developed a really great mantra of just allowing the imperfections to seep through into the project. And so you'll see as you watch many, imperfections. It's not a polished Hollywood film, but I think that's part of, the allure.
Well, and it's part of tackling a really important issue, and I wanted to ask about that, to just kind of get into a little bit of what this thing is about, gentrification being a very big centerpiece of it. For you, how close to home was this story? Was this something that was developed off of a personal experience, or I guess where did the inspiration come for this?
Yeah, I mean, it comes out of my experience growing up in Washington, D.C. Jay's character is very closely linked to my own life experiences. I think that it was important for me to document the changes that my city was going through, especially the way I saw it in 2016, the amount of, kind of really eradication of the community, which I came up in, really necessitated the story of this magnitude. So that's kind of what really pushed us into the production. I just think that outside of that, it was important for, me to also just kind of flex my muscles and trying to make a film fresh out of film school, or while I was still in film school, and really kind of see what we could come up with in a sandbox type of environment where we had nobody to answer to and just could freely create.
Well, going from that, I mean, talking about, really kind of grassroots making this film, saying just coming out of film school and not having a lot of those resources, you've now got it on Netflix, which is huge. What was it like when you got that news, and can you tell us a little bit about that distribution side of things?
I mean, it was incredible. We had our world premiere at Slam Dance in January, and we invited Array to one of our screenings, because they'd be in town for Sundance and Slam Dance in Utah, and so they came by, and we just been talking ever since, and that was, I think Array is easily the best place for this film to be, just because we're so kind of kindredly oriented, in terms of bringing Black stories to life and pushing them as far out as possible. And Array's, Ava DuVernay and Array, they also are not strangers to, making do with minimal resources. If you just look at how a small outfit like them could produce and magnify stories to the degree that they do, it's really incredible, really, when you think about, kind of what they're up against in the film industry at large,
Well, and to talk about that too, I think it's important to bring those issues to light so that everybody does know, what are some of the obstacles that you've faced and that these films face in getting to these wider audiences?
I mean, well, we know, despite the, success of, films like Black Panther, I think that many distributors still lack the imagination required to see the, commerciality of Black stories. And I think that it's very possible that had Ava, and Array not existed, a film like this would not be distributed. We'd be hard pressed to imagine it being on Netflix, through some other means, and I come out of a family of filmmakers. Both my parents are independent Black filmmakers who never had opportunities like what I'm seeing now. When they were, fighting to tell Black stories in the 70s, 60s and 70s, they had to self-distribute all of their films, which is incredible, brutal work, and I think that just seeing, me now and the opportunities that I have now, they're just like, yo, thank God for Ava, because this is really, this is new. This is very new.
Well, and it's great that it's getting out there and that, you don't have to go through all that stuff that they went through. I can't imagine going out self-distributing a film in the 60s and 70s, even without the internet. That's just sounds exhausting. Going from this to, and now that you're you know, you've got a movie on Netflix, you've got a film on Netflix, which is huge. What advice would you have for other young filmmakers out there who kind of want to follow in your footsteps and want to get their stories told and seen?
Well, I think I have to be honest and say that we were never at any stage, really thinking about where the film would end up. We had no festivals in mind. We had no distribution in mind. We just knew that we had to get this story out by any means necessary. And so, I think had we been thinking about where we would end up or going to Sundance or Slamdance or whatever else, I think that we would have been restricted in our creativity, worrying about, what these places want, what type of stories they want to see rather than what type of stories we wanted to tell. But if there's one piece of advice, if I'm someone who can give advice, if there's one film, if there's something I would say, it is green light yourself at all times, under all conditions. That was our mantra through the project: is wait for nobody, wait for nothing, just do it. And wait. Don't hold off anything, waiting for somebody else's permission. That I think that was what allowed us to really persevere under the incredible kind of circumstances under which the film was made.
Well, for everybody out there, obviously Residue on Netflix right now. Where else can they follow you and everything that you've got going on?
Well, I'm on social, Gerima _gang, Gerima is my last name, _gang on all socials. But also, anything Array is doing, you can follow them. You'll see me, tied up in it. I even do Renee as well. And my whole team, we all, deep on social media. So, come find us.
Nice. Well, Merawi Gerima, thank you so much for joining us here, for being on the show. Appreciate it greatly. And congratulations on the success of what you've got here. Powerful film. It's important. It's on Netflix, so people can go watch it very easily right now. It's there. So thanks so much for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you so much.
All right, so very fascinating. Like I said, the movie is on Netflix, Residue. Go check that out. All right, we got to continue on with the show because we've got more coming up. Next, do you like history? Do you like food? What about the combination of both? We've got the host of Tasting History, Max Miller, who's going to join us next. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. And welcome back to Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler, and thanks everybody for joining us wherever you are. We do appreciate it. We broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, and discussions. And right now, I'm going to ask you this. Do you like history? Do you like food? What about the combination of both? We've got the host of Tasting History, Max Miller, joining us right now. Max, thanks for being here. And I wanted to start off by saying, it seems like your channel has just blown up here this year. And I wanted to talk about why you started it. What was the inspiration behind this?
Yeah, first, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it. It's funny. I actually started it because a friend at work, I would always be bringing in dishes to work, usually baked goods. I'd always had some sort of historical story or whatever, and I would bring them into work. And last Christmas, somebody said, maybe you should put these online, put them on YouTube, and tell other people about them. Perhaps, that's a way to get me to stop lecturing my coworkers. And then, when the whole COVID thing hit, it just kind of was perfect timing and gave me the time and bandwidth to do it. I had kind of started doing it before that, but when I got furloughed from my job, that really let me get going.
Well, and I think it's just such a unique thing too, going back through and finding like these old recipes. Like, what's the process like for this? And maybe we could talk about a couple of them specifically. I know one of the recent ones was like a quesadilla.
Yeah. So I have a collection of old cookbooks, but the nice thing is now that I've started the show, people are sending me old cookbooks and old recipes. So there is no want for content out there because people have been writing down recipes for, thousands of years. So I go through and I pick things that interest me, or I pick a period in history or a story that I want to tell and find a food that I can kind of connect to that. And with the quesadillas, I love quesadillas. I live in Southern California, so, Mexican food is omnipresent here. But this recipe was just different enough. It was from the 1830s, so it was just different enough from our modern day quesadilla that it kind of opened the door to have a discussion about the history of maize in Aztec culture. And so that's kind of what I do. Basically, whatever interests me, I assume is going to interest other people. So it's a pretty easy process.
Well, and talking about the interesting side too, this combination of history, I know there's some interesting anecdotes that you've discovered. I know there's one about brie in particular when you're doing an episode on that. Maybe if you could tell us about that one. Yeah,
so one of my favorite little stories that I've found is when King Louis and Marie Antoinette were fleeing from Paris, just, during the French Revolution. They were going to one of their chateaus to be safe, but they kept kind of stopping along the way. And one of the stops was because Louis wanted to have some brie and wine. And on his stop to have a little snack, the people caught up with them and put him in chains and took him back to or fetters and took him back to Paris, where he was then executed. So it's just kind of funny that, if he hadn't had this absolute love of cheese and wine, so French, perhaps, the monarchy would still be alive and well today. Probably not, but at least it would have put it off for a little while because he would have made it safely to his chateau.
Right. That is so funny that it's wine and cheese that's got him killed in the end. Looking at this and all of these different things that you've been creating so far, and I want to remind everybody to go there on YouTube and you can watch all the videos, and they're really great. What's something that I guess that you want to make that you haven't been able to maybe find the right ingredients for yet?
Yeah, so something that I want to make is, and part of it is that it's hard to find the ingredients, and part of it is a little ethical struggle within myself. But I would love to make roast swan, which is kind of the quintessential Renaissance Tudor era fantastic cuisine that you see in pictures, where it's the whole swan, feathers and all, sitting on a table, and underneath it is a cooked bird. So I would love to do that. One, I don't think that my oven here in my apartment is big enough for a swan. And two, I'm not sure where to get a swan. And three, I don't know that I could cook a whole swan. It would just pain me. But one of these days, I would love to figure out how in the most humane way possible, I suppose. So because the history around those feasts is so fantastic, that it would be cool to do.
What's the oldest recipe that you've used so far?
I think that the oldest recipe that I've done. So when you use the term recipe, it's kind of what exactly is it? Because I made something called kikion, which is an ancient Greek potion, essentially. But we don't really have a recipe because it's from the time of Homer and kind of the time of, myth and legend. So rather than a recipe, we have allusions to it through Homeric poems and some other authors from the time of exactly what was in it. But we don't really know how it was prepared. We don't know the consistency completely. So there's a lot of guesswork, but that's definitely the oldest. That would probably be 400, 500, 600 BC was when this would be eaten by ancient Greek heroes, I suppose.
Well, it's definitely it's so fascinating, and it's like a perfect time for this kind of show as well, just because of the fact that you mentioned with COVID and pandemic and people cooking at home and wanting to do some research and learn about history. I love both of those things, especially the historical side of things, figuring out where things came from. What's next on the horizon? What do you have planned for everybody?
I think that the next thing, we're going into the holidays, so there are just so many wonderful holiday foods. So I'm going to be doing things like a pumpkin pie, which is a pumpkin pie recipe so old they hadn't even added the K yet. It's from the 1670s. It's very different from what we would eat today, and pumpkins were fairly new at the time, at least to European cuisine. And then so many Christmas and holiday recipes, from tamales to the boiled pudding from A Christmas Carol. There was a recipe that came out like the year afterward that was the first time it was called a Christmas pudding. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Nice. Well, Max, congratulations on the success. I mean, it really is a really great channel and thing that you've created here with this. And it's fun to watch these videos and see what you come up with and learn a little bit of the history of it as well. So everybody can go there, tasting history, watch the channel. Max, thank you so much for joining us here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you for having me.
Tasting history. That is a genius idea, and that is on YouTube. Go there, watch those channels. I know we need to get to a break because up next is TBD with Adrien and Jess. What's it going to be about? I don't know. That's why it's called TBD. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Yeah. And hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate all of you. Hit the subscribe button. That's a great way to get the notifications when we go live. But it is Wednesday. It's time for TBD. What's it going to be about? I don't know. That's what our hosts are going to tell us right now. We've got Adrien Warner and Jess Surbaugh. Jess, hello to you first. How you doing?
Hey, Greg. I'm wonderful. It's a little dreary, but I'm hanging in there. How about yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, not bad. It is dreary, but I'll take that over fires. So that's good. Going from Jess, we also have Adrien Warner. Hello, Adrien. How you doing?
Hello, I'm thriving in my vampire environment. How are you?
Excellent. Good. I am good. Well, for Adrien, why don't you tell us what is today's show about?
Well, this week's episode is the big destination because we thought, news on Earth continues to be super bleak. So we wanted to talk about our favorite subject, which is space. Before we kick things off, I want to ask Greg, do you think that there's life outside of Earth?
Oh, yes, 100%. And I'm hoping it comes here and saves us at some point. I've bounced back and forth between either they're going to destroy us or save us. At this point, I'll take the aliens. But yes.
At this point, I'll just take them arriving. I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah.
Well, you probably know this since you are also a big fan of space, but about a week ago, there was some pretty big news about the potential of life on one of our neighboring planets. And no, it's not Mars. It's the other one, Venus. So just to recap, last week there was a huge scientific breakthrough, and a team of astronomers have found the chemical fingerprint of phosphine on Venus in the form of clouds in Venus's atmosphere. And scientists are suggesting that this chemical may be tied to life, which is kind of surprising because Venus, we know it as kind of a hellscape where volcanic plains exceed about 800 degrees Fahrenheit, which can melt lead, and its clouds are made up of sulfuric acid, which is not exactly super friendly. However, the clouds are much less harsh than Venus's surface, and this could have allowed the chemical to survive. So regardless, the chemical phosphine has been found in 20 parts per billion in Venus's clouds. And if the gas is really there, then it indicates that Venus has got some sort of geological or chemical activity going on that could have created it and put that there. And in fact, there's a molecular astrophysicist at MIT, Clara Sousa Silva, who's been studying phosphine as a possible biosignature that could indicate the potential for life on planets that orbit distant stars. And she published an article in the Scientific American in 2019 called When We Finally Find Aliens, They Might Smell Terrible, because phosphine is a really horrid smelling gas. Probably it smells something like diapers and death is what it's been reported as. Yeah, really yummy smells. So anyways, she says in her article that different gases can indicate different biospheres. And one of these gases is, you guessed it, phosphine. So what does this all mean? It's going to take a lot more research to find out. Scientists are going to want to find out what kind of event caused the release of this gas into Venus's atmosphere. And before they can figure that out, the scientists need to go to the lab and really understand how microbes produce phosphine, as well as how long it's been up in Venus's clouds. In fact, climate models show that Venus could have sustained liquid water on its surface as recently as 1 billion years ago, which is quite a long time. So if phosphine shows evidence of some past ecosystem, it would have to have stayed in the clouds for over 1 billion years, which is kind of a tough case for scientists to solve. They're going to try. And, there's actually been quite a few attempts to study Venus's surface in the past. Only the Soviets have actually attempted any landings on Venus, and this is quite a ways back in the 60s and 80s. Most of these failed due to the extreme conditions on the planet. There were a couple successes in there, and then NASA did a couple flyby missions. Its first was in 1962, and NASA's Magellan later on did a mission to Venus, which was orbital in 1989. However, it burned up about 10 hours after in its atmosphere because, like I said, not exactly a very welcoming planet. Anyways, interest in Venus is resurfacing. There's actually a couple missions in the near future to solve its mysteries. And Jess, I'm going to hand it over to you to talk more about those missions coming up.
Awesome. So first up, we have Rocket Lab. And Rocket Lab is a private spaceflight company that builds and launches satellites. They say they are enabling companies, students, scientists, researchers, governments, and entrepreneurs to get their ideas to orbit. According to their website, they've actually launched 55 satellites so far. And now they're aiming to launch a private Venus mission in 2023 to hunt for signs of life in these clouds. So their CEO, Peter Beck, thinks that Venus research has been way underrated. And as soon as this phosphine discovery was announced, he quickly made the statement that they actually want to do many more missions. So what's the plan? This mission will involve two pieces of Rocket Lab hardware, the Electron booster and the Photon satellite bus. A photon will launch atop an electron and then make its way to Venus on a flyby trajectory. When the photon gets close, it will actually deploy a probe into the Venusian atmosphere. And as Adrien mentioned, researchers do think that a pocket of potential habitability remains in these clouds about 30 miles up. Here, temperatures and pressures are quite similar actually to those found on Earth at sea level, albeit with sulfuric acid. However, this particular cloud layer is where the scientists spotted this fingerprint of phosphine. So Rocket Lab wants to go explore this with great hopes that it turns into a greater Venusian exploration initiative in the future. We also have the Calypso Venus Scout, and it isn't yet under NASA consideration. It was written in a white paper submitted to the Committee on the Planetary Science Decadal Survey, which is the government's long-term planning process for future space missions. And we know one challenge is creating something that can survive long-term on Venus's extreme surface, but its thick cloud layers do kind of pose challenges and could impede different measurements from like orbital missions. So to circumvent both of these challenges, the Calypso has two parts to it. Has a high altitude balloon and then also an instrumented descent module. So the idea is that the balloon would remain above the cloud layer where they say it has no need to be fortified to survive those high temperature and high pressure of Venus's lower atmospheres. It would then deploy that descent module down, attached via a tether to about 20 miles above the surface where the cloud layer breaks, and they hope to have, great visibility of the terrain. The module must actually come up every 5 to 6 hours because it's just too extreme, the conditions are. So they would actually reel it back in, let it cool down for a few hours, and then send it back out. And on its way up and down, it would actually scan the surface of Venus in visible and infrared wavelengths and with meter and centimeter scale resolution, which is awesome. This also makes it mobile, right? If you have a single mission, a single landing spot, you're definitely exploring the places around this area. But with this, you can actually, definitely get a 360 or some bigger, ability to scan more of the surface. And just to kind of quickly nail the importance of the Venus exploration here, Venus may have quite likely been temperate like Earth for 2 to 3 billion years. We're talking like 68 to 122 degrees Fahrenheit. So, that could stay in life. It might have. Did I say Mars? Did I say Earth?
No, I'm sorry. I said like Phoenix.
Oh, I was like, wait, did I say the wrong one? Yeah, like Phoenix. So, very livable, as Adrien knows. However, about 700 million years ago, there was some type of gigantic resurfacing event that took place, and it caused a runaway greenhouse effect, which evaporated all water on the surface and allowed carbon dioxide to essentially vent in uncontrolled at will. And it fried everything and even caused the plate tectonics to literally lock up. And they call Venus a twin of Earth. So understanding what happened on Venus is wildly critical for us to learn about the future of Earth.
It is awesome. That is so much information. Although I am going to say diapers and death is also a good analogy for 2020. But learning about Venus, I love that. That is great. So going from that, I know we also have, of course, Kick Stop It. And I have no idea what it is that we're talking about this week. So what is on the docket here?
Well, we found a really entertaining product called the Talk Socket. It's basically Alexa in a pop socket for your phone, because apparently unlocking your phone and talking to Alexa is too hard. It needs to be on the outside of your phone, listening to you at all times.
Yes. Yeah. I don't have
yeah,
time
that's-
otherwise.
You guys, there's a quote in here that says, "It may seem like magic that you can add an always listening Alexa to your iPhone that can bypass lock screen and Siri's dominance from voice interaction. Does that sound like magic we want?" No.
No,
Sounds
it
like
can
magic I
bypass
do
your
not
lock
want to
screen?
harness.
Sounds like sorcery I do not
No.
want.
That is not a good idea. All right, so this is the Kickstarter campaign. So they've got it both in there. I can see they've got the nice flashy light on it so that everybody knows they can unlock your phone. What is the price on this thing?
I actually didn't check that one. So let's find out together.
Oh, $59.
$59.
$59 is what it's.
I mean, that's
Wow.
probably about the price of a dot or so. So
Well, I mean, the goal was 25,000 and they're at 55,000. So clearly a lot more people want to be a lot more listened to.
A lot more people
To
want
each
their
their
phones to
own.
be broken into really easily. All right, so as usual, we have to decide here, is it to kickstart it or kickstop it? Jess, which way do you want to go?
I mean, I think it's clear we're kick-stopping this one. It's too much. We're doing too much now. Just dial it back a little.
It's too much.
That's all I'm asking.
It's too much. Also another good analogy. Adrien, what about you?
yep, it's a kick stop it for me, dog.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with it too. I have to kick stop it. That's 3 kicks that we're going to do. So kick stopping it right there. Yeah, I don't need this. Nobody needs this. All right, so going from the dock socket, it's all kick stopped. Of course, though, we have to wrap up with some Charlie Cam.
That's
Oh,
right.
this is my
back in the
favorite.
tank.
Is water aerobics again?
You know what? He's really enjoying his water aerobics class, his his class pass.
His
He's having a great time.
Look at those hooves. Oh, Charles. A magnificent creature. I'm glad he's
Awesome.
feeling better.
Yes. Charlie there getting his water aerobics workout. Well, Adrien, Jess, as always, thank you so much. Another great edition of TBD.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
All right, Jess and Adrien there for TBD. As always on Wednesdays, it is always great. All right, let's do this. We need to wrap up the show today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We are here every single weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and all of that. And of course, you can hit subscribe, follow along at digitaltrends.com, share the show, let other people know about it. I'm Greg Nibbler. I'll see you right back here tomorrow with another edition of Digital Trends Live.